They cannot run, jump, or howl. They have no eyes, ears, or brains. Yet plants are very much alive. They create the air we breathe and the food we eat. Plants bring beauty and life to every corner of the world. Like most plants, the dandelion begins life as a seed, dry and very much asleep. To start growing, any seed needs a wake-up call. Maybe it's the sunlight and warmth of spring, or much-awaited rain, or a brush fire signaling that new space is available. Once it's awake, a plant is thirsty. Roots erupt in the search for water and minerals. Their tips are sensitive to light, temperature, even touch. Above ground, shoots reach out for light. The legendary Green Man of European folklore celebrated plants' essential fertility. Many festivals still mark the rituals of planting and harvesting, like the early dance around the maypole, the tree of life. Ancient cultures lived or died by their crops. Each had fertility gods. And celebrations endure: the May Queen, Thanksgiving, and Mardi Gras. The young dandelion reaches for its share of sunlight. The giant sequoia stretches high into the sky, some close to 300 feet. Powerful pumping action draws water to its topmost leaves. Special microphones reveal the sound of water being drawn upwards. Some trees suck up 100 gallons a day. The human urge to cultivate plants is recorded in the Bible, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden. The Bible recounts a Garden of Eden bound by 4 rivers, home to Adam and Eve, beauty and oneness of spirit for a time. Perhaps later gardens yearn to recapture the perfection of Eden. The oldest working gardens are in New Guinea. Bordered by rainforests, they have been cultivated for more than 10,000 years by the native people who still use their prized pigs as plows. During England's Victorian era, walled gardens were grand, designed to provide mountains of produce for large family households daily. Underground water systems irrigated acres of gardens, and elaborate ornamental plantings required armies of gardeners. The desire to garden is universal. We even garden high atop city spires, not quite the hanging gardens of Babylon. Long steeped in magic and myth, plants are nature's conjurers. Even the dandelion, a lowly weed, can change raw chemicals into carbohydrates and proteins. Animals can't do that. Plants use a trick called photosynthesis. Their leaves contain chlorophyll, making them green. They absorb sunlight while microscopic openings breathe in carbon dioxide. With water and other nutrients, the plant converts the sun's energy into glucose, which is the plant's own energy and the basis of all food. Their waste product is oxygen, vital for animal life. We exhale carbon dioxide, essential for photosynthesis, which may be why talking or singing seems to make plants grow. Some plants cheat. Instead of making their own food, they steal it. The dodder, a vampire of the plant world, embraces its victim and uses special suckers to drain its vital juices. Plants have evolved to survive most of what Earth dishes out, even sun-blasted deserts. The saguaro cacti of the American West have tough, leathery skins to keep them watertight. To reduce water loss, their leaves are mere spines, which also help to protect the plant. A saguaro may store a ton of water to survive dry spells, but the water tank can spell danger in a thunderstorm. A lightning strike can instantly boil the plant's water supply. In a rainforest, a plant's challenge is congestion. There's always a neighbor threatening to put an individual in the shade. Smaller plants may have to take their chances in the shadows, or, like air plants, ride to the sky with the trees. Far above the ground, a bromeliad uses its cup-shaped leaves to catch and store rainwater. The leaves also make a nice swimming pool. A mountaintop raises different problems for a plant. The air may be cold, but the sunlight can be too bright. The answer? Leaves with a furry surface act like sunscreen. A leaf may be cloaked in sun protection factor 4, or perhaps factor 24. The hardy dandelion thrives in most parts of the world, but it's as sensitive as any other plant. A sprinkle of rain causes the flower to close. Giant water lilies have buoyancy tanks in their leaves. Their amazingly sturdy pattern of ribs inspired London's Crystal Palace, with a similar system of girders to support the structure's tons of glass. Plants are found in every environment on Earth. Beneath the ocean, plants thrive in relentless waves and salt water. In such conditions, kelp can grow 18 inches in one day. In the Pacific Ocean, there are marine forests as tall and lush as rainforests. It's a secret, twilight world. There are many mysteries and legends about the power of plants. Best known, Jack and the Magical Bean, which when planted grows up to the sky, taking Jack to the kingdom of the giants. The ancient Greeks believed the souls of the dead rested in beans. Legend tells that the mathematician Pythagoras died in a bean field, trapped there by his murderers, afraid to crush the sacred beans underfoot. Plant myths abound. A woman who plants too much lettuce will never marry. Any vampire movie fan knows that garlic is protection from evil spirits and the undead. And a woman who puts an onion under her pillow will dream of her future husband. She'll probably cry a lot, too. Chicory was said to bring invisibility and to cause locked chests to spring open. But beware of basil. According to an ancient French physician, smelling it can cause scorpions to breed in your brain. The longest, most relentless war ever is the one between plants and their insect enemies. Plagues of locusts regularly wipe out crops in Africa and Asia. Swarms of countless millions can destroy a year's supply of food for a small town in just a few hours. Even domestic plants have a tough time. Aphids suck them dry. Caterpillars rip them to pieces. And whole battalions of birds and mammals can hardly wait to devour them. Some attack with more sophisticated weapons than others. But plants have developed weapons of their own to fight back. Our dandelion has gooey latex resin to gum up insects' mouths. It's similar to the stuff tires are made of. During World War II, Russian scientists found a species with enough latex to make rubber parts for tank tracks. By war's end, 250,000 Russian tanks rode on dandelion rubber. The tobacco plant resorts to chemical warfare. It contains nicotine, instant death to insects with no health warning. The stinging nettle's artillery consists of thousands of tiny hypodermic syringes, which inject burning chemicals. Some plants use more conventional hardware, but no medieval torture chamber boasted such an array of weapons to scratch, pierce, and tear flesh. Even holding an innocent-looking rose can have a price. Legend says that all roses were once white. They became red only after blood was spilled on them. Yet red roses have long been a symbol of love. Roses were sacred to Venus, the Roman goddess of love. In villas strewn with rose petals, the Romans drank rose wine, washed in rose water, and planted rose bushes to thank their gods. The Victorians used an elaborate language of flowers. Red roses meant passion. Yellow, infidelity. A fresh bud for a new love, a full bloom for love on the wane, and white for spiritual love. So in Victorian times, full yellow roses meant goodbye. Insects are normally plant enemies, but plants sometimes hire them as protectors. This acacia is patrolled by an ant security force which readily attacks invaders, even those that are much larger. In return, the ants get a home and food which the tree secretes in the form of an oily substance. Some plants are jokers. The passion flower sprouts dummy eggs to make butterflies lay their very real eggs elsewhere. The dummy eggs never hatch into hungry caterpillars. This tortoise is treading on a plant, the stone plant. Animals are fooled, so they will leave it well alone. A plant's looks were considered symbolic of the illnesses it could cure, according to ancient herbalists. A plant with a twisted root, the pink-flowered bistort, was deemed a cure for snakebite. Chicory with a bright blue flower, which opens when the sun shines, was considered a cure for failing sight. Other notions seem less logical. For instance, a potato in the pocket is an antidote to rheumatism, but only if it's a stolen potato. However, herbal remedies often were and still are effective. The dandelion was a traditional remedy for kidney complaints. It was known to affect the bladder, hence its nickname, pea-bed. In fact, a drink made from dandelion leaves can relieve problems of the bladder and kidneys. Native Americans and others chewed the bark of willow trees to cure pain. And it works. The reason? Willow bark contains salicylic acid, the basis of aspirin. Chinese herbalists have spread the practice of holistic medicine far beyond their homeland. We now realize that many folk cures have their roots in solid medical science. Foxglove yields the drug digitalis, still used to treat heart disease. Animals use the healing qualities of plants. Chimpanzees are known to seek out plants as medicines for themselves and their young. And new medical discoveries continue to be made. A species of periwinkle may be a breakthrough in treating leukemia. Plants can perform miracles of life, or they can spell sudden death. For a pitcher plant, a silent trap makes for a great offense. When the plant needs to supplement its diet with insects, it stands ready to lure them in with color and nectar. But this is no flower, it's a death trap. The nectar is drugged, so groggy insects fall straight into the slippery pitcher. There is no escape, just an acid bath of digestive juices. This granddad of pitcher plants has been known to devour rats. And this carnivorous plant, the Venus flytrap, led some to believe that it came from outer space. An insect touches the plant's tiny trigger hairs at its peril. But brushing the hair once doesn't close the trap. It takes at least 2 strokes. Springtime. The countryside comes alive. Flowers start putting on a show. It's the mating season. While plants try to ward off insects for most of the year, now it's a different story. They do all they can to attract them. Plants need a go-between to distribute their pollen, their sex cells, so they woo almost anything that flies with fragrances and sweet nectar. But first and foremost, plants use spectacular visual effects. Flowers. Birds and insects feast on nectar and get a good dusting of pollen. This gets brushed off on the next flower they visit. After the flowers and a romantic dinner, there'll be new progeny for the plants. Like others, the dandelion tempts its visitors with a lavish stash of nectar. It's a key player in the production of honey. The frenzy for flowers surely reached its peak during the 17th century in Holland. Tulips had been imported from Turkey, and tulip mania soon took hold. There was a race to breed new colors. A tulip stock market developed. There were bankruptcies, suicides, even murders. Finally, the government was forced to control prices. However, if you happen to know where to get your hands on a blue tulip, you'd make a fortune. Flowers may have seductive powers over humans, but they work even better on insects. Unlike humans, insects see ultraviolet light. From a bug's eye view, a flower's color holds an intense attraction. Its petals glow like pilots homing in on landing lights. Insects are zeroed in. The plants try to outdo each other, developing more dazzling, sweeter-smelling flowers. It's like a fashion parade. And some plants seem especially cunning. Bee orchids imitate the female bee. They look like her, smell like her, feel so much like her that the male bee tries to mate, gathering pollen as he does. Realizing he's been fooled, he flies off, only to make the same mistake over and over again. Some flowers smell bad, like this Amorphophallus titanium. The plant's huge middle poker can grow as tall as an elephant and stinks of rotting dung. It's a stench only a beetle could love. Actually, flies too crawl their way to the treasury of pollen. Another foul-odored plant owes its name to a debonair Victorian gentleman, Sir Thomas Raffles, in his time a merchant, soldier, botanist, and colonial administrator. He founded the London Zoo and in 1817 gave his name to the world's biggest, smelliest flower, Rafflesia arnoldi. It blooms rarely and briefly, but oh, when it does. A smell like ripe dung, the look of ripe meat, and the size of a coffee table. Flies think they've hit the big time. In the human world, plants have always been important. Even a dandelion, fully grown, can be used as a salad ingredient, coffee substitute, potent wine, unreliable timepiece, medicines, and of course, tank tracks. Without plants, man would have had none of his wooden weapons, or flowers, music, wine, armor, mead, bread, fruit, art, clothes, or even the first wheel. The first voyages of discovery set out to find more than new lands or map uncharted waters. Explorers charted nature, searching out new sources of tea, cinnamon, nutmeg, and preservative spices highly desirable in an unrefrigerated world. They looked for medicinal herbs, new woods, and dyes. Over 7,000 new species of plants were discovered during the reign of King George III alone. A qualified botanist was an essential member of any such voyage. Joseph Banks, who sailed with Cook, was not only the ship's botanist, but part owner. One Australian landfall had such a profusion of species, the place was forever known as Botany Bay. Botanists and plant collectors still scour the earth and oceans in search of new species. Even today, research has its hazards. One British botanist working with old specimens was recently stung by a nettle. It was 200 years old. Some grasses don't rely on insects, but toss their pollen to the wind. Unfortunately, sometimes it finds its way up noses, causing allergic reactions. Once the pollen lands on another flower, it fertilizes it. The result? Seeds. When a seed falls to the ground, it competes with its own parent for food and light. Its chances are much better if, like the dandelion seed, it can travel long distances. Each seed is equipped with a tiny gossamer parachute. The sycamore seed goes by helicopter. This squirting cucumber uses jet propulsion. Some plants use explosives. Primitive plants like ferns don't have flowers and conventional seeds. They produce spores under their fronds, which are catapulted into the breeze. Some plants hitch a ride to new territory. Burdock seeds are particularly adhesive, covered in tiny hooks. An inventor named George de Mestral, pulling burdock seeds off his clothes, wondered if the idea could be adapted, hence Velcro. Any seed can travel on the inside of a hungry animal. While the plant's fleshy fruit is digested, the seed itself is tough enough to pass through and out the other end. Or a plant may just send out shoots from the parent base. The shoots take root, and presto, a new plant. The creosote plant has used the same system to colonize vast areas of the California desert. Even in our modern synthetic age, our dependency on plants is complete. Plants supply everything from wood, paper, clothing, vegetables, paint and dyes, tires, beer, tea, coffee, even cigars. And yet, the potato, perhaps the most versatile food plant, was once thought unfit for humans. From South America, it traveled to England with Sir Francis Drake and spread through Europe. Yet the French wouldn't eat them. They fed them to pigs. Louis XVI realized the potato's potential as a cheap, nourishing food. He decreed that soldiers should guard a field of potatoes. It was a clever ploy. Word got out. The potato was so good, it was for royal use only. He and his queen even took to wearing garlands of potato leaves. The people in a revolutionary mood invaded the field and stole the king's potatoes. Soon after, they sent their king to the guillotine. The French have remained passionate potato eaters ever since. They found several ways to prepare them, including French fries. Plants are vital. Without them, Earth's atmosphere could not support life. Plants produce the oxygen we need to survive. If plants didn't absorb carbon dioxide, it would build up and turn the Earth into a greenhouse, leading to severe global warming, floods, fires, famine, and catastrophe. Plants are nature's air conditioners. Even a simple garden hedge can provide more than enough oxygen for an average family. And as one season of a plant's life comes to an end, another's adventure begins.